So hello, uh, hey, dzień dobry, hello, and shalom. Welcome to the 18th Warsaw Jewish Film Festival, to the short films program. This program today is called Narrative of Disenchantment, and we are, the hosts are Lihi Nagler, which is the head of the film selection committee, and I am near Ferber. We are both the programmers of these short section of the festival. And with us today, our special guests are two of the filmmakers in the program, MISHNAYOT, who is the director of Image of Victory, Tmunat Nitzachon. Hello, Adi. Hey.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
And we have two from another project, from another work, the Angel of History, the Engel der Geschichte. We have with us Eric ESSER and EVELYN RACK. Eric is the filmmaker, the director, the scriptwriter, and the mind behind this film. And also EVELYN, she's the co-author of the script and also the editor of this movie, which is very important for this movie. So thank you so much for being with us today. Let me start with Eric. I have the first question is for you. The starting point for your film is the tragic case of Walter Benjamin, who fled Paris, and his certain arrest and the fate by the Nazi occupiers. So I wanted to ask what fascinated you in this story, and especially the thesis of history made by Benjamin, and that was one of his last works before his tragic end.
I was invited to the Walter Benjamin Film Festival with another project back in 2013, actually. And before I went there, a friend of mine gave me the text, Angelus Novus, and I read that and I saw the place with the monument, and I was deeply impressed, and that was where the idea emerged, from Walter Benjamin's text of Angelus Novus.
And so you combine the two. It's also it's the thesis, the theory, but also his personal story. So I was wondering, what is for you this combination symbolizes from your angle?
That's a tough one. I think I was seeing in this area and in his biography, and also in this text, something about borders and the possibility to escape, or a route to a safe haven, which he hadn't been given, that's still visible in borders nowadays. And I think that thing touched me, that I saw what was happening 80 years ago, and still seeing people being denied a safe haven through a border. And I think that put it together to a current value, which then I saw on this specific border in the Spanish Civil War, and that kind of it took until 2015 until all fell together.
Mm-hmm. And then you could see the relevance of these stories altogether.
Thank you, Eric. Now we move to Adi. Adi, your film, which I love, basically, and I saw many times, is personal in the familial sense, and is also very intimate in the cinematic sense. How did you keep the balance between being part of and being from the outside? In other words, where are you in the film? Where do you see yourself and your role in the film? And can you share with us an example for a moment that you maybe had doubts and thoughts about what you are producing?
Thank you, Lihi. So it's a really good question, and we dealt with it quite a lot during actually more the editing process, because the shooting process was completely intuitive. It's like, it was really, you know, just filming what was happening day by day. And I'm not sure I even admitted to myself that I was actually making a film at that point, but rather this was kind of my comfort zone, holding the camera and being there. Also, I think as a family member, you feel rather helpless because you can't really assist with the healing process at all. So for me, it was a very intuitive process. Then during the editing process, I did, of course, kind of face these ethical questions. And I think that in documentary filmmaking, a lot of the time there is the inkling to do a voiceover or to state where like the creator is at. And I do get criticized for that even sometimes, like for saying like, why don't you make your political stance more apparent in the film? Why do you choose to only look at things? But we really felt, my editor Dochen and I, while making it, I've actually, so I did deal with it a lot. I even went out, I did interviews with my family. I kept following my brother even after, and we did try a lot of things, but ultimately we felt that I didn't really feel like a fly on the wall. I think that I was there, and it was our choice to let the characters look at the camera sometimes, even though we could clean it up, but rather to kind of try to get you as the viewer into the room. And that is ultimately what we felt was best, because I think for Israelis, this situation is just so politically delicate that me saying anything about how I feel, especially, or how I politically think about this situation, could have really estranged other people from being able to see what was there and the pain that was there. So this was our ultimate decision. And I think what is wonderful about it, it's like making a documentary where the art is actually taking things off. You know, we did a lot of interviews. We thought about a lot of artistic ways that we could amp the film up, but eventually in the editing process, it's like just to strip everything down and let the materials speak for themselves. So that was our process.
Interesting. And I have a question now for Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. Nice to meet you. Looking at your current work as an editor, it seems that the subject of the Nazi past occupies you a lot. And you have edited lately Sharon Riba Khan's documentary, Displaced. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to show it in the festival, and we hope to show it next year. And you were very much involved, of course, with making the Anioł of History. Different than Displaced, our film now, Anioł, is an essay film in which the voiceover and the music many times dominate the screen. Can you tell us a little bit about those artistic choices that you made?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when Eric came up with the idea, so the first idea was that he is going shooting with the camera person. And so you went 3 times shooting, and we were editing in between. So the challenge was so the past is written into the place. So how to find images that create this space for an audience or for a viewer. Yeah, so I think it was the biggest challenge to find images that transport this written or this history that is within the place itself without being too obvious, so to say. So yeah, I think it was a process of I don't know how long we edited the film, but like they went 3 times shooting, and then yeah, it was the voiceover and the narrative structure was evolving all the time and changing, of course, within the editing process. So yeah, it was a really different work and different film than Displaced. Mm-hmm. Yep, but yeah, we had it was great to have these 3 shootings and to be involved in the maybe like this.
Can you tell us something about the choice of music? Because the music creates a really heavy sense of something bad is about to happen.
So yeah, it was Matthias Strusner, who is the composer, and also like shooting was 3 times Matthias was with us the whole process, and he was making templates, and we were working with the templates, and then in the end for the picture log, Eric was working with him more intensely. So maybe it's easier for you to tell something about the process with Matthias.
No, I think you pretty much summed it up together. I really like what is not usual, the interweaving of like processes which would be usually afterwards. So we did editing while still shooting, while still working with music. And also I remember that in the music composition process in the end, which was more intense, us 3 were connected and sitting, and it's more like a group work than I would say other films would be.
Mm. Thank you.
I would say another thing about it, just to comment, that I really like in your work, Evelyn and Eric, the way that the music helped to build layers, like the layers of the history and the present and the future, especially Eric, in your words at the end of the film, combining it with the picture of the road, the image of the road, leading to basically nowhere, hopefully not. So Adi, hi. A question for you. Something that was really on my mind for a long time, not after the first time watching it, but the second time. So you have this amazing materials of Uri's injury, and viewers I was talking to after the film, they weren't sure if it wasn't staged, because it somehow seems like, what are the chances that you have these materials? So I wanted to know, were you aware of these videos from the beginning of shooting, or did you discover it much later? And maybe, was it difficult to get the permission to use it from the army or from someone else?
Yeah. So I wasn't initially aware of it, but while we were still in the hospital, I did find out that there is some footage. We didn't exactly know what, and you have to keep in mind that Uri's, all his soldiers and the brigade was actually still inside Gaza while we were shooting and while we were there. So I've only heard of the materials, but only after the war ended, and on like a few months later, I went to meet one of his soldiers, the guy who had the material. And I won't get into it too much, but it's like a whole thing of how like Israeli army are now aware that they can't really keep soldiers from documenting things. So they were aware, and they even sent him to like a short course of like a documenter for the division or whatever. But it's really kind of about the army realizing that they can't stop the flow of information coming from inside. So it was his materials, his camera, and this guy, he too is intrigued actually with documentaries and working on something right now. So he really had like I think you can really see it, that he has like a cameraman instincts, and he's kind of aware that he's filming even at that time of the injury, which I think is what makes these materials so special. And we had more materials than we put in. It was very tempting, but we just eventually we kind of stuck with what we felt was most important. I was very scared that it would be hard to process it with the army, but it was actually a little easier than I thought. I did, of course, have to go to the censorship, but they approved it rather easily because these are things that they're not, there is no risk on the security side of it. But I really do think that to your question, like, not only was I not aware of the existence of these materials, but keep in mind that for me, as a woman who served in a very different place in the army, I was not aware, like, or I heard of, but like seeing the war zone inside Gaza and seeing what my brother really went through, especially not only from the injury itself, but from what you can see beforehand, and the way that they go in there, what they actually go through. So I wasn't even really deeply aware of that before we actually could see it and see my own brother in it. And I think it really kind of became this inherent part of the film that I can't even imagine now, like making the film without it. And I think this is maybe something that ties both these films that we are talking about, that there is the reality you see in the hospital, and there is this memory of a reality that is actually not far away and is actually happening at the same time, but the people around Uri seem to either not be aware of it or kind of to suppress it. And I think that is a very powerful thing that motivated me to tell kind of our story while making this film. So these materials are really, and I think the fact that they kind of look a bit like a video game, and that is why people kind of tend to, I think it's also something that goes very deep to the generation of my brother and the whole feeling about the conflict for people who are born like in the late 90s, and kind of this is the only reality they know, and they have to put their life aside, go to the army, play this video game, and then they come back to society and it's kind of gone. So
yeah, I think this is maybe the paradox. You are the camera, you see it like from your eyes, but at the same time you feel so distant from it. Like it's so estranged, like you are not out of it because it looks like a video game.
Exactly.
It's brilliant, yeah.
Just to add something, I think that also the concept of the Angel of History connects both of those films. Of course, completely different context of history, but still. And I wanted to ask Eric about that because, of course, this film deals with Benjamin's text. And in this text, the angel is battered by history. The storm, which symbolizes progress for Benjamin, has shoved his wings so strongly that he cannot close them anymore. And you end your film with the sentence, "Dear Europe, I am afraid. I am afraid that tomorrow will look the same as yesterday." And in this sentence, of course, you express the fear that Europe's future may mirror its past. And for me, it was really interesting because the choice that you made with your material about the border did not reveal any dramatic events and any violence. It was quite still. And I wanted to ask you, it is clear for the audience, I think, that you refer to the refugees crisis, but there is some kind of clash between those meanings. So you have the past and you have the future, but where is the present?
That's a tough one.
I'm sorry. It was only what I was thinking of when I watched the film.
What I found in the actual place there, that there's a big discrepancy in the present, which is actually very beautiful and sunny. And if it weren't for, I knew that this history has happened at this border, the surface differs a lot to the past, which I can see on the photographs.
Yeah, and I think for us, there is a moment where we kind of connect for us with the present, because there is an empty image, like a blank image. Mm-hmm. And for us, it was like to take this white image at the sea is an image that right now we are writing history, but just from tomorrow you can see the history that we are writing today. So this blank image was our reference to today, mm-hmm. and that we are creating images today that will in the future tell something about the history. So yeah, we had this past and then this part with the, where you see the Mediterranean Sea, that is also kind of a place where history happens right now, with this blank image that for us refers to the child at the, yeah, and then in the end we look to the future. So yeah, I think this was the past, present, future narrative that we tried to establish.
I felt that maybe there is also some moment of suspense, that in this moment there is still a chance to change something. So you are leaving it open in a sense that here there is a space, and of course the border symbolizes it the best, where you can still try to close the wings. And I think this is very, very beautiful in the film.
Thank you. That's why we're stopping right on the, where the stop sign, on the, right on the border, there's the stop, and when the camera is on, exactly on the border, that's the last frame of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I have another question for Adi. This is something I cannot hold back, because this is something that I constantly think about your film. So I can only imagine how difficult and also strange it was for your parents, all this experience, understanding that your brother is injured, having this period in the hospital, and having all the craziness around. And only the expressions on their faces, without many words, they were left in my head for many days after watching the film. And I could not stop thinking, also coming from Israel, but not living in Israel, that this meeting between the personal and the ideological, and your parents with their generation, they are trapped inside this Israeli roller coaster, and you have the feeling that all the atmosphere there has left a very, very bitter taste in their mouths. And they are simply presenting a visual crisis. This is the way that I saw it. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What your parents were going through in this during this time?
I can try to tell a little bit. It's really, as you say, I think one of the things that was most striking, and when we felt it on ourselves, I think I understood it much more than I maybe intellectually thought it was true before. And it's really what you said about the personal meeting, kind of like the national or the ideological reality, and really being trapped together. I mean, I feel like in the hospital, we literally felt as we were symbols, especially my parents and my brother. Like he literally felt that he was now the wounded soldier, the hero, and there are expectations that come with that title. And I think this is something that is really striking for many of us, because when living in Israel, I think one of the things that is very dominant in these like current years is that I think most of the time life here could be like on the very personal level, and kind of like the national situation is not always in the front. And this is the exact opposite of what happens in what happens in a war in general. And I think this was part of the things that is quite infuriating even, and like for my parents was really difficult, is like how the way that people have to kind of align themselves like with the national narrative, and really can see the price that it takes, was something that was very difficult. But also I think that the personal crisis is so apparent at that time that sometimes maybe it's even more dominant, like in the moment. And I think that another, and this is again why we decided to really stick, as you say, like with their expressions. And even though I did speak with them about it, and I could have involved like their own voiceovers and thoughts or their interviews, but we ultimately really felt like it was much more authentic and more powerful even to just let you feel it with them. So that was what we did. And also I think there is kind of like a generational thing that you can see quite strongly between the way that my parents feel about it. As you said, like it's with of course with a specific Israeli history of like my parents bringing up kids at the time of like the Oslo peace talks, and as opposed to what has happened now, like in 2014 and actually until today in 2020, what has happened since with the like non-existing peace process. So you can really kind of see this ruined dream unfold at that time. So I think that is what you see.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, as an epilogue for this conversation, for this talk, I want to actually to relate to what Adi said. There was one word, everything, but one word that captured now my attention, which is the generations. And I think that we are talking about in both films, we are talking about the previous generation or more, and then we have our generation and the future generation. And as closing words of these traps of history and maybe the present that we are talking about, Adi, you made such an excellent choice, we feel, with the closing song, Broken Mirror by Rona Kainan, from which one of the sentences describes your film beautifully. And everyone sees the disruption, and yet it is hard to explain. And this goes very well with our narratives of Disenchantment, the title of our program. And Eric, we talked before a bit. I mentioned the lost highway. For me, lost highway, a highway of maybe of the present and not really the history, because in a way we think that both of you, and this is the reason these films work intellectually, critically, but also emotionally. And this is maybe the good thing, that by looking fearless at our wounds of the past and the situation in the present, this gives us hope for the future. So Lee and me really are thankful for you to share with us your films. And we wish you luck, and we wish the audience, more audiences to watch these films and to experience this as we did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your beautiful words.
You're welcome, and thank you so much, Adi and Evelyn and Eric, and wish to see you in the future in Warsaw or in other places.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.